I just lit my log and it burned all the paper off of it, and I don't know if the log started at all. It like just went poof, and then now it's just that, and it looks very sad. I think it's catching. I think it's catching. I think we'll be okay. I want to share some footage with you that I took in January that I didn't get a chance to share yet. So even though that is in the past and it's not this month, let me show you what happened with the socks I knit for Mark for Christmas. Here's what's going on. My stripes have lined up. So I got back up so you can really see. My stripes have lined up so well. Even the heel turn lined up. Like, that is amazing. And I'm following, you know, everything exactly. I'm counting, everything's the same. I even switched over to a new ball of yarn because this was all I had left. And I was like, there's no navy blue in here. So, see, no navy blue. I knew I would be playing yarn chicken because the first sock ends with a blue toe. The graft is in blue, and I think that last round was blue. So imagine my disappointment when I'm like, where's my blue? I have this much before it switches to blue. That's not a lot. But I can't like extend the toe. That would look really weird. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna rip it back to, I don't know, probably the row right before I start the decreases. I'll rip it back to there. I'll do one more round of stockinette and then I'll do the decreases, and I bet it's gonna put me like this much, I bet, right? That much to go around. I'm gonna end with a row in blue and then the graft in blue. I bet it'll be perfect. Which makes me wonder, because everything else was so close, it makes me wonder if I counted wrong before I started the decreases. But like, I counted it twice. And it has the same number of rows. So the only thing I could think is maybe it went a little wonky when I switched, there it is. Maybe it went a little wonky when I switched balls of yarn. I lined it up so it was right where the color change happened, but, you know, one ball of yarn to another. It's gonna be worth ripping back because the blue toe, like Mark would probably be hanging out and I'd be looking at his socks and I'd be like, why didn't I fix it when I had a chance? So, it's my mission for tonight. Fix the toe. It'll be worth it. I finished Mark's socks. I only had to redo the toe on the one 3 times. I don't want to talk about this 3rd time, why I ripped it back again. I don't want to talk about it. But the toes match. So that's exciting. I'm okay with it being this much of a not perfect match because, like, conceptually I understand how challenging it was just to get it to this point, but they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Look, all the rest of the stripes line up all the way down the toes. They line up all the way down the cuffs. He loves those socks so much. He wears them all the time. But he has another pair of socks that I made him, I think, 2 years ago, and he completely blew out the heels on them. I mean, completely blew out the heels. And I was like, he showed me and I was like, Mark, you know the saying, a stitch in time saves 9? And he was like, oh, that's what that means. And I was like, right? Because if you stitch it when it starts to, you know, come apart, make a hole, whatever, you won't have to do 9 stitches later. And he was like, I honestly didn't notice. I think it all failed at once and it just kind of went. So I did some darning on his socks, which was a lot of fun. I had to figure out how I wanted to approach the problem because one sock had a small hole, but a lot of the the yarn around it was looking threadbare, like it was looking like it was about to lose its integrity and there'd be a bigger or more holes. So on that sock, I did essentially a duplicate stitch, and I just went over all of the stitches, and that reinforced whatever is there, and it worked just fine. On the other sock though, the hole was massive, and I just wasn't up for like grafting a whole thing onto there, so I got out my mending loom. I do have those in my shop, so if you need a mending loom, you can check those out in the Jill and Eve store. The mending loom worked great. I was able to weave on a little bit of warp, and then I just went back and forth until I couldn't keep my little warp loops on the loom anymore, and then I popped those off of the little comb thing on the end and stitched those down, and so now it has a little patch. There's one thing I wanted to mention, because I'm not sure everybody realizes this. If you are going to weave over knitted fabric stretches, right? It's stretchy. So what you have to do is you have to turn the loom so that it's on a diagonal to the knitted fabric. Then when you have that patch on there, even though it's woven, it's still going to move in the same way as the rest of the fabric. That's more comfortable and more durable, because if you have things tugging against each other with the movement of the fabric, then that's where you'll have a problem. And you know, at this point, it's not yarn anymore, it's knitted fabric, so we need to pay attention to what the fabric is doing. This is another update. I started working on a stocking, and I will link the video. I don't want to go into the whole big backstory, but we did find the pattern for this vintage stocking, and I am making one. I'm going to make one for each of the people in my family who don't have one, and I was very excited because when I was going through my whole stash and cleaning up stuff, I found a ball of Angora yarn that I spindle spun a decade ago. I totally forgot I had it, and I was thrilled to find it. So it was too skinny on its own to work out in the stocking, and that was an easy fix. I just doubled it up. Now I have a fuzzy wuzzy beard for Santa out of 100% pure Angora, which is what the original vintage pattern called for, and the grist matched well enough that I think it's fine. So I'm very excited to have found that with all of my stash cleanup. The thing about the stocking is that my tension's terrible on the little stocking motif part, and I'm not gonna worry about it. They kind of poof up a little bit, and I am going to blame that on the fact that I'm not very practiced with intarsia, and that's what I'm using for this pattern. I would have done better if it was more like Fair Isle or stranded color work, where I was carrying the two colors all the way across, but just having one color in that little bitty section, at least I consistently did poorly on all of the stockings in the pattern. I'm gonna say it was intentional because they kind of have this little poof. I think it gives it a 3D effect. What do you think? I am going to work on that stocking from time to time, and hopefully I'll have maybe that and another one done by next holiday season so that we can enjoy some little handmade vintage sock patterns on the fireplace, which look, it's going now. That's awesome. Let's talk about this wool that I have behind me. This is my Romney Border Leicester cross fleece. This whole big thing is full of this wool, and I have dog fur in my wool basket. Why does this always happen? I know why. I know why. So I have this basket. It's a pretty tall basket. This is just, I know on the camera it wasn't really kind of show. You know what? I'll just take it out. I'll just take it out. I'll just hold it in one bundle, because it just, the way that the camera works, whoop, it's sort of deceptive at how much there is. So there's this much. And they are all aligned in the same direction. If you look on the downward facing side of these locks, it's a slightly smidge yellow, and then at the top part it's slightly smidge more white. That's because the tips were the bottom part slightly yellowed, and then the cut end is at the top here from the orientation that I'm holding it, which means when I spin this, I can pick up the little bundles of floof just like this, and I can spin it directly from the cut side, and it's all going to face the same direction. It will be aligned and very smooth and great for cables. So this is the project, the first project. Where did I put the paper? I was gonna hold it up. I have the power of editing, so future Evie, put up the picture. I am thinking of doing the Rockhound vest from wool and pine because I think that this spun worsted is going to really let the cable pattern really pop. And this is a long wool. It's 2 sheep from long wool breeds that made a lamb, and that's the cross, but it has the luster of long wool, which means it has a little shiny kind of sheen to it. I'm going to dye this wool, and I'm not sure what color yet, maybe purple, but I also don't want to be too predictable. So I'd love some opinions. What color do you think I should do? I don't want to do teal. I like teal, but let me show you the other thing I'm already working on with cables from wool and pine. Editing Evie is going to help out again. This is the pattern. And this is the back panel of it. It's upside down. This is the provisional cast on, so this will be the top of the neck, and it's the back of the cardigan. And I am really enjoying this pattern. I did mess up the cables. I twisted some of them the wrong direction. And I was just staring at it and staring at it and staring at it. And I was like, it doesn't look right, but I can't figure out why. And I went through the pattern a whole bunch of different times. And I put it up on my Discord, the Jillian Eve Discord. If you want to be in there, go check out my Patreon and you can get in there. The people in my Discord were looking at it for like a full 24 hours. And then finally, someone generously purchased the pattern because we don't share patterns in my Discord. Just putting that out there. Someone generously purchased the pattern so you could check it, and we figured out where the problem was. And I was like, someone take it away if I start to get this idea in my head that I want to do cable surgery and ladder down to fix it, because I would have to ladder down to here. I'd have to take all of that out down to there, because these are the ones that are twisted the wrong direction. And you can see, I can see it now very easily. It's right here. Because the cables are supposed to look like they're braided against each other, so they're supposed to look like they kind of pull against each other across the surface of it, and that one doesn't. It looks like it's laid on top and then goes a funny direction. But if I hadn't pointed at it, I don't think anyone would notice. So the plan is that I'm going to leave this as it is. It'll be on the back. I won't have to look at it. And if someone is that concerned about my cables, you know, they've got other problems. And then I'm going to do the front panels. I'll make sure that those twist the same direction, because I could picture myself like on a car ride or something, like sitting there, and then I look down and I'm like, ugh, why? So I'll make sure the front panels are going the right way. But anyway, yeah, so this one's teal. I need a different color for the Rockhound vest. And the other thing I wanted to mention is about this wool. It's not the softest wool. That's a long wool feature. It feels kind of silky, but in a more coarse way. It's not soft, if that makes sense. So I didn't want it to be the kind of sweater that would be next to the skin. I wanted it to be something that I would wear over another undershirt. And I think that like a linen button-up would be really cute with the Rockhound vest over it. And then it's not up against my skin, but I can still enjoy this lovely lustrous luster. the luster of the luster, because it's gonna be really, really beautiful. So let's talk about how I am preparing this fiber, because it's been a little bit of a journey to get it figured out. My Valkyrie fine combs. Work wonderfully. I love these combs. They're great. Now, as you can see, I have a problem, and the problem is static. I was like, all right, I'll go get my water bottle. But here's the thing, I'm nerdy and I like history. So I started looking around to find a recipe for combing milk. That's what it's called. And I always thought that was weird. Like, shouldn't it be like spinning oil? That's also a thing. But specifically, combing milk is for combing. So when you scour the wool, you've taken all of the grease and the natural oils and the lanolin off of the wool. You've washed that out. And so the wool, it's honestly, it's kind of, you know, dry. And so combing milk is some kind of something that you spritz on it so that it doesn't get too staticky while you're combing. I used this recipe to make some combing milk. This has been sitting for 2 days and it still actually looks like milk. That's gotta be why it's milk, right? Right? So with a little help from my friends, we figured out the lecithin is a emulsifier, and that is what keeps the oil and the water mixed together where normally they would separate. I used soy lecithin. You can find those, they're in capsules. You can find those wherever you can find vitamins. They're pretty common. I didn't even have to go to a specialty health food store or anything like that to find the soy lecithin. One of my patrons also had some, I think it was sunflower lecithin. It was in a powder form. And so she was able to put some of that in the mixture. We figured maybe half a teaspoon was the equivalent to 1 capsule of the soy lecithin. And it mixed up just like this did and stayed emulsified. I think as long as it's a lecithin, it should work. So you can find it like with the protein powder stuff. They might have the powdered kind, and then you can find the oil kind in the capsules in the vitamin section of wherever you buy that stuff. I think that this is a game changer. There's something about this that works better than just the oil and water. And the reason I had water in with the oil for spritzing it in the first place is because I don't need a heavy oiling. I just need enough to kind of distribute it. And so the water was there to sort of bulk it up and make it easier to distribute. This is perfect. It puts just as much as I need, just as much as I want. Is it making my equipment oily? I don't care, because the benefit of it, the way that the wool feels more healthy, less dry, it's less brittle. And this isn't like a damaged fleece. It doesn't have a break. It's a sound fleece. Like if I tug on the locks, they're solid, right? But when you're just going at it with these tools, you can really tear it up. And I feel like this is actually making the wool stronger. There's so many reasons why I'm loving this. So let me just stop going on and on and on and on and on. Because currently at this point, if you came to me in real life and said, Evie, tell me about combing milk, and I would be like, how much time do you have? So let's just take a look. I haven't really investigated the English combs that I have. And because these breeds are English long wools, I thought maybe I should try the English combs. The English combs are terrifying because they look like this and also this. They've got rows and rows and rows of teeth. And here, so you can see, and they're very tall. They just look like such a menace. They just look like such a menace. And they're huge. These are not held in 2 hands. I have the base clamped on here with just a couple C-clamps. And it's on there very firmly. It needs to be firm, because when you're swinging these things around, you don't want other stuff moving that you don't expect to have moving. So this just slides in there like that, and then I have these little wooden dowel pegs. I just kind of jam it on there just like that, and it holds, and it's good, and it's sturdy. So I've already spritzed this. So I hold it up here. I want to feel that I'm sliding through and not ripping through. And having one hand up here gives me a little better control, I find. Oh, whoops, I forgot. These, you load them facing up and then you card them to the side. So you, because the holes are in different places, you tip it and then put it up here. There we go. Okay. And now we kind of come at it from a side angle. Look at how it just goes right through it. Isn't that lovely? I'll have to tease my way up in there. Alright, here's what we got. This is the waist stuff, and there's a little VM in there and some yellowed broken tips and short bits and little snarls and snags. That's going in the mulch pile. And then I have all of this beautiful, combed, fluffy, well, this quantity looks like a third of what I showed you when I held up at the beginning, the locks I had flicked. This is so much more efficient. This is a Diz, D-I-Z, and it is a little tool that came with these combs. It's basically just a curved shape with a hole in it that you pull the wool through to create your rove, your comb top. And then when you have a bunch of them, you have your rovings. You want the curved part to face towards the wool, and to get it started, I might twist a little pigtail here, or I can use an orifice hook and just kind of pull it on through, just like that. There we go. I just give it a little tug and shove, tug and shove, tug and shove, tug and shove. Check it out, friends. This is some comb top. Look at this fluff. It's so delicious. And it smells like babies. That might be weird. Ignore I just said that. But look, it's so fluffy. And I'm gonna put a little knot in the end here because this is the butt side. So this way I know where to start. And then I can wrap this up. But this, I'm having a lot of fun. Now, I know a lot of people are gonna say, Evie, where do I get combs like that? These were gifted to me, and I don't know if Indigo Hound is still producing. Last I checked, they were doing sometimes. Your best bet is to see if you have a local reenactment society where people do handcrafted historical tools. You can check on Etsy. So these are English combs that I'm using. If you want like the really big paddle ones, you can also find peasant combs that have sort of a similar look and function. And if you want the small ones, Valkyrie has those. You can find those at various stores. I don't have any in my shop. If it's something that you think you'd like for me to carry, I'm willing to look into sourcing some. Currently, I do have a lot of hand cards in my shop. I have fleeces to card, so that'll be a different vlog. But for this month, I'd really like to get this fleece all processed and done and ready to spin. And when I'm tired of combing, I will be knitting so that I can get something off the needles before I start my Rockhound vest. But that's pretty much my plan. Can I say that I'm milking the wool? That sounds weird. I am applying combing milk to the wool. That sounds pretentious. We need some better verbs. Help me. What am I doing here? I spritzed the wool with milk. I am just gonna go do a bunch more combing and kind of chill out and enjoy the act of processing something to create something. I'm finding that really important for my mental health lately. I hope that you have things you can do for your mental health if you feel stressed out by the world. And I wanted to leave you all with a couple very important tips This video was sponsored by Jillian Eve because I shouted out my shop. Now I'm going to shout out my mailing list. In a recent newsletter I had, I suggested some ways that people might be able to build some local in-person spinning fiber art community. A lot of people found me because of COVID and so many things shut down and went virtual, and I love the virtual community that we've built here. I think you're all wonderful and I just love reading the comments, and we really do have community here. But I also, especially if you're in the United States, feel like it's very important right now to have local in-person people. In fact, I'm going to a local in-person spinning group tonight myself because it's also something that I need to have. So you can pause and look at this if you want. I thought about doing like a 10 ways to start a group. We don't need to go through that and drag it out. This is something that's easy. You can screenshot it, you can take a look at it, ponder it, see if any of it would work for you. And if you'd like to join my mailing list, I will have a link for that down below where you can sign up. I send out a monthly newsletter. It does let you know what's going on Patreon, some behind the scenes stuff, and people get to show off their finished objects and stuff that they've created that they've shared with me, so it's a good time. Doing those other things like liking and subscribing and sharing the video with your friends, leaving a comment, that stuff's all free and it really does help the channel. So we want to have more and more and more fiber friends. Fiber friends, I'll wish you happy spinning. I will give you a boost of bravery to get yourself out there and go find some in-person people. Maybe you already have a group. Go look around. You might be surprised. And I'll see you next time.